North American LCQs are on our doorstep, and then Europe is going to be right after as we figure out who the final two teams are going to be representing the RLCS in Lyon. I want to give you guys 3 North American and 3 European X Factors going into these LCQs, rounded out with a little bit of a recent history just to refresh you guys, remind you of their journeys so far. Let's start in Europe. We are on board with Radosin, who took Split 2 off. Rocky season for our world champion. He goes from gentlemates to unceremoniously leaving Ninjas in Pajamas. After a split off, he has stayed grinding. He is still in the top 40-ish range and has been for the duration of the Raleigh split while he's been sitting at home. When Vitality ruled the world, winning 3 straight regionals, then the major, then worlds, Radosin flexed positional versatility alongside world beater Zen and veteran stud Alpha 54. His feel for the game to control tempo, keep offensive possessions alive, and call his own number when needed allowed Vitality to leverage its talents, averaging 10 shots per game and allowing the least goals at that season's World Championship. With all things, change is inevitable. As the competition rearranged their powers around Radosin and company, Vitality's unbreakable super strength was diminished. Radosin's place in the wider scope of the RLCS was called into question as the team slowed from a full-on sprint to a brisk jog and gradually dropped in land placements, ending the season with a flat and disappointing World Championship where they missed the playoffs. With lukewarm showings across the board, this resulted in Radosin leading the team, in tally and goal participation. So despite them not doing very well and dropping out, who was it, to Oxygen? Radosin was still, at least statistically, a factor. There was some on-the-field stuff that made you a little nervy here and there. But they're trying to repeat as world champions, so a little bit of context. Greener pastures led him to gentlemates last season, with Seiko reportedly hand-picking Radosin over other options, and it went terribly for a move that was doubted by the community and intended to contend for majors. Missing out on Birmingham was just not acceptable. The mates crumbled in big moments and were disappointing offensively. The fall ended up going on to Radosin, whose .89 tally per game put him in the bottom 4% of all RLCS players. And just to be clear on that, that's not just Europe, that's all Rocket League players across all the regions. So he ended up being the fall man. He became a victim of last man in, first man out, and while sitting out this split, Radosin, again, has stayed very relevant in the ranked boards. As Itachi is potentially entering a different, if not the final phase of his career as a player, Ninjas in Pajamas now becomes the 3rd blockbuster organization in a row for Radosin, where he'll slot in alongside the hungry duo of Oski and Nas, who are both in the quote-unquote close but not quite periods of their young careers. Now, let's move on to our next player in Yujin. Radosin's replacement was the capable and explosive Yujin, who cut his teeth with infrequent top 16 rosters like Oida and Nordschleife. After a cup of coffee with a roster full of young talent, including Mozzarella and Juke, did you guys know that roster existed? I did not. Yujin got a call up to the big leagues with proven commodities AcroniK and Metane on start point. Overnight, Yujin leapt from the deep depths of compelling European prospect into household name status, wrapping Split 1 with the highest goal participation in Europe for a team that was flirting with a major spot, and Gentlemate's decision seemed like an easy one to pick him up. New life was instantaneously injected into the Gentlemates as they started the split with a top 4 finish that took Carmine Core to a Game 7. Despite some jitters that came in big moments, this was not only easily disregarded for a player in Yujin who carried a lot of pressure, but was also overshadowed by elite playmaking, big-time assist numbers, nimble on-ball play, and the resurgence of a once hampered mates attack. And don't forget, guys, Gentlemates had one of the most disappointing offenses probably of any team in the RLCS in the first split. They could not put goals on at the rate that you would assume from a team that had Radosin as a table setter, Seiko, of course, as a lead striker, and Juicy, a very capable player within his own right. The mates did so poorly in Split 1 that they now find themselves on the same warpath as Radosin and Nip, needing to trudge through Europe's LCQ to secure the final spot for the region to attend the World Championship. And despite an early exit to a team secret roster in excellent form for the Raleigh Major, yujin, Seiko, and Juicy should feel very confident, in my opinion, heading into this LCQ dominant. I mean, I get it. There's a lot of teams out here that are vying for that last spot. We've kind of seen that the LCQ doesn't always just have to be like the team with the most experience. I think about Team Rock. Corinthians was kind of a team, in my opinion, that made a lot of sense to win. They felt like the best team in that region. But for Europe, I mean, who knows? If you told me that you saw the future and it ended up being Nip, I would totally believe that. I feel the exact same way about Gentlemates. And you could even make an argument that there's some teams with a puncher's chance, much like our third European players team. Let's talk a little bit about AcroniK. Yujin may have been the most intriguing player before his bounce to Gentlemates, but he wasn't the only reason that Start Point made 2 straight top 8s to round out the first split. AcroniK's revitalization was a welcome sign after a post-team liquid drought kept the vocal table setter off the main event stage for a full split. In the second split of last season, his Luna Galaxy roster retooled in a big way, bringing Tox and AcroniK onto a team that ended the final regional with a Grand Finals Game 7 loss to the eventual world champs in BDS. And AcroniK seemed to be back. As his teammates pivoted to Mina, AcroniK linked up with the aforementioned Yujin and Matane for Start Point. Isn't that really funny that Start Point end up, Luna Galaxy finish off with a top 6, and then Tox and AcroniK Tox and AcroniK both go over to Mina. Of course, we've seen the success that AcroniK has found over there as a member of Twisted Minds. AcroniK is, as Yujin spread his wings, AcroniK was showing us characteristic double touch hammers off the backboard, pinpoint lasers off the ceiling, resets, and staunch defending. AcroniK is a player who has ushered in new talent throughout his career, from Atau and Oski to Yujin, and last split with Tempo and Matt on Cash ATM, who narrowly missed top 8 twice. That was a team I was actually really excited about, especially a player in Tempo who didn't make my top 50 big board, but he did make my next 10 in. I'm very high on Tempo, who hasn't found the success that I think that his career will eventually bring him. Now for the LCQ, AcroniK joins a revitalized Hogan mode with former bros Growly, Rezi, and Adam Baguette replacing Scrubkilla from the original roster. Rezi, speaking of which, made my most recent iteration of Belleair's big board. He's a top 50 player, in my opinion. Big Rezi guy. People were asking about Acro. I get you, but I think they're both really good. I've talked about Acro on Twitter, and I might have even made a YouTube video about him in the past as well. But Rezi for me is the star player on that 100% roster. And if AcroniK can be a steadying force that Hogan mode needs, I think they're in the chase for Leon. I don't see a reason why they can't be. I even think Growly is a player who I flirted with my top 50. So as this game is winding to an end here, let me know in the comments who is your X Factor for Europe before we hop over to our 3 for North America. Champions Field from the group stage of North American LCQ. Have you guys figured out whose point of view we're on? That's right, it's Comm. In North America, there's another viable veteran looking to usher prospective talent into contention as Comm links up with Talk and friend of the Need Boost podcast, 5UP, for this Carl roster, being coached by Lawler. Really funky team here. I really like it, to be honest. I actually tweeted about this roster when it came out. Follow me on Twitter. Shameless plug. Comm's polarizing personality and physical play style span back to his V1 days as he evolved from primary scoring option to a multifaceted nightmare for opposing teams. Comm really made a name for his game with relentless demo play, carving cavernous lanes for beast mode to exploit on the offensive end. For that version 1 roster, which, by the way, probably my favorite decals of all time. I think both versions are dope. There was like the purple and the white one, but then there was one with the kind of like metallic glow. You know what I'm talking about? Pitch adjacent antics, shouting at, laughing at, and trash talking opponents drew ire from many fans, and this overshadowed the talent hiding in plain sight. Comm was and has been a player willing and able to adapt to the team around him to win. It happened with version 1 when he was a complimentary scorer to beast mode, and as the roster shifted from tournament to Daniel for Gamers 8, and of course it's worth noting that most players would be okay with riding the beast mode and Daniel duo to an international $500,000 prize pool, but holding his own as roster rumors swirled and speculation had Comm on the outs weren't enough to sway his level of play. As Comm landed a spot on the aging OG roster, with now retired major winners Nolly and J-Naps, Comm helped lift the squad to every LAN of the season, looking like, in my opinion, the most consistent two-way player on the roster. Of course, OG didn't have, the success on LAN that we thought that they would, but hey, I mean, getting to every LAN, that's definitely a testament to the talent on that team, and what I think that Comm still possesses. As that team fractured, Comm entered the season from hell. With Evo and Talk, Comm was poised to be a steadying force, but technical woes derailed the split. These frustrations and lackluster results splintered the team, and Comm took the split off, but stayed relevant. A name atop the ranked leaderboards, just like Radosin. It's really funny. I check a couple of times a week at minimum just to see what's going on with rank 2s. Wow, what a save that was. And you always see Comm, Radosin, who's been playing as like Dembele Dior or something like that. I understand it's a football thing. And then Alpha has been up there too. It's really funny to see their names. And now Comm and Talk are back with a new third. Friend of the pod, 5 up. And after going 3-1 to make the LCQ's top 16, they are in striking distance for Worlds. The only team they lost to so far were, ironically, the boys, who not only house former Talk and Comm third Evo, but also have recently acquired 5th player on our list, hockser. Let's talk about hockser, why don't we, guys? hockser has quite possibly one of the greatest redemption arcs in RLCS history. The short of it is that the promising career start that saw hockser in the mix around seasons 8 and 9 sputtered as the COVID-era Ghost Gaming rosters couldn't produce to the levels they'd hoped. Suddenly, a new opportunity on SSG alongside LJ and Arsenal ushered in a hockser renaissance, as the fast-paced, space-making duo of Arsenal and hockser allowed LJ to thrive. hockser's own individual play and mechanical reinvention helped push SSG to LAN, and through numerous variations, including Chicago in place of Arsenal, hockser had elevated his status from rosters who gate-kept top 16s to continual major contender. As LJ moved on to join First Killer and AcroniK, hockser and Chicago stayed the course as a duo. Joined by the promising young Kofer, their 9 Lives roster started this season with a top 4 finish in North America's first qualifier. Followed by a top 6 placement, 9 Lives controlled some of their own destiny to make the Birmingham Major. And excuse me while I flip my page. A mixture of pressure and stiff competition dashed those international dreams as a top 16 finish forced hockser and company to watch from home. Kofer was clearly the star from that first split, behind huge scoring stats, but it was hockser who led the team in saves and delivered the second highest assists per game ratio of any player in North America from that first split. Speculation abound. With Kofer going to Space Station Gaming, hockser and Chicago ultimately ran it back with longtime prospect Zanil. Opening the second split with a top 6 had doubters second guessing, but missing the next main event altogether all but ended 9 Lives regular season, and I put out a YouTube video about that. You guys should go give that a watch if you want to hear more of my thoughts about them at that point in time. With Chicago retiring, hockser now joins Evo and Aqua, who are watching now on the boys, a roster who are looking to build on a surprisingly productive second split. I don't think that any of us really thought that Aqua and Evo, two players who seemed like they most likely were going to end their careers as what could have beens, pick up Percy and end up looking really good in North America. And they have now breezed through the opening portion of the LCQ, going 3-0 in their group, only dropping a single game, and sweeping the aforementioned Comm 5-up and Talk roster of Carl. I personally think they have the third best odds to make Worlds out of North America, which would be yet another massive feather in the cap of hockser, who also recently announced that he's going to be joining Baylor University's inaugural RL roster, which is super cool. The final player I'd like to spotlight might just be the one I'm most intrigued by, and that's Frosty for Complexity Gaming. His young career has already shown flashes of brilliance and controversy both on and off the pitch. Staying within the confines of the pitch, Frosty was ceremoniously welcomed into the RLCS with a coveted NRG contract and then shockingly dropped before the season even began. Do you guys remember they put out that video where the infamous clip of like, who do you least want to see succeed, came out from NRG, and Frosty had said Kofer, which is ironic. And from as far as I understand, he was joking. I think they're like cool. I don't think that was negative necessarily, but it is ironic that he ended up taking Frosty's spot on Space Station Gaming. But finding a foothold with the eponymously, that's too many vowels, but I'm going to go with it. It means it's like the same name because they were the Snowmen and he was Frosty. Named the Snowman roster, Frosty, Reveal, and Scribbles were one of the youngest teams in the RLCS. A first split included a narrow playoff miss, and a top 32 seemed about right for an upstart team with a median age of about 16, but an open qualifier 4 that saw them reach the semifinals had fans salivating at the idea of, North America's very own iteration of Rise, Joyo, and Vatira. Of course, that former Team Queso and Moist trio were so incredible, partially because of how difficult it is to pull something like that off at such a young age, and with such little experience. This lesson was learned the hard way, as 2 consecutive whiffs at top 8 grounded any lofty expectation from fans. Despite those results, SSG saw immense promise and signed the young squad during the offseason. Building on the hype, Frosty and the boys put the RLCS on notice as they opened the season with a grand finals appearance. They put NRG up against the wall as they had a 3-1 lead that was built up against the favorites. But NRG ended up crawling back and winning the whole thing in 7 games. Despite the pressure of the moment and some juice returning to NRG's offense, the defeated SSG were now squarely in the race against elite talent in North America. But if we know anything about the RLCS, it's that consistency is one of the hardest things to achieve. And a shocking round 5 group stage exit with game 5 losses to JNAPS' Pioneers and Lotus 8. There's a great clip if you haven't seen it yet of I can't remember his name, what he goes by. It's not Wellis, it's his teammate. But anyways, of him being like, screw you, Space Station. The talent was obvious, but the fit had shown flaws and had run its course. The volatility of a young team that showed a developing player like Frosty's heliocentric approach had betrayed Space Station, and they were looking for something different. A Game 7 loss to Pirates on a boat and a near-perfect sweep at the hands of the Ultimates sent Reveal and Scribbles to the drawing board, ultimately yielding them Kofer, and Frosty taking his talents to Complexity. There were big shoes to fill with Complexity alongside CRR and Diaz, who not only were coming off of a LAN appearance, but also were replacing longtime franchise cornerstone Raise Bull, who had moved back home in order to compete with Sam. As El Toro exited Complexity, they were in dire need of a scoring punch, having finished Split 1 in the bottom half of all North American offenses, and Frosty brought just that. Do you guys remember I had tweeted something before that Birmingham Major where I'm pretty sure Complexity had the lowest goal per game of any of the 16 teams that were at the Major, just to kind of remind you of where they were from an offensive perspective. Not only has he elevated Diaz, who has become the 5th highest goals per game player in the region, up from 17th in Split 1, but Frosty has also taken over primary striker responsibilities for the team, breaking down defenses, softening them up, and it's shown CRR looking a lot better as well. Efficiency is still not Frosty's strong suit, but the ability and the volume are there. Frosty is one of 9 North American players to shoot above 3 shots in both splits, but he's also finished in the bottom 5 in shooting percent, both of those splits as well. So high volume, very low efficiency. Players like him, Daniel, Andy, they're all around that same area. This offensive bump did help Complexity secure a top 4 and a top 6 finish, but it ultimately wasn't enough to get them to rally. I do feel, however, that Frosty and Complexity are the odds-on favorite to win the North American LCQ. I don't know how you guys feel about it. Maybe you're big on the boys. Maybe Shopify Rebellion is another team that you like what they've done, bringing in Wavy. But for me, Complexity seemed like the team that has the best odds to win it. I'm not saying they will, of course. If they can get over the hump, it will be due in some sense to Frosty's mechanical prowess and dedication to the game, where he's consistently put up more ranked hours than almost any other player in the world. And that, guys, is my 6 X Factors heading into the LCQ for Europe and North America. Very interested to see, to hear in the comments below who you guys have your eyes on. Definitely let me know as this ball is touching the ground here. Frosty filling up the stat sheet. That's what I got for you guys. I'm gonna try and edit this. Sorry if there's any coughs. I haven't recorded in a couple of days because I've been sick. So this is my attempt. I've waited long enough. I've been sitting on this script. So really excited for North America. It's on the cusp of occurring to see who we're gonna be sending. Guys, that's it for me today. As always, thanks so much for taking time out of your day to hang out with me. And until next time, guys, take it easy.